Hey guys, what's up? It's Katie and I'm back with another Marvel Contest of Champions video. And thanks to the CCP, I had early access to the Champion Spotlight for Cosmic Ghost Rider. Yes, I was wrong about the next Herald, but you know what? I can accept it. I can accept it. So we're gonna go through the Champion Spotlight here, take a look at his mechanics, his base stats, his abilities, you know, all that fun sort of thing, and see if Cosmic Ghost Rider is the Herald that we all need. So who is Cosmic Ghost Rider? Well, during Earth's last stand against Thanos, the Punisher Frank Castle was struck and killed. A lifetime of killing saw his soul sent to hell, and a deal struck with Mephisto saw him to become the latest Ghost Rider. But by the time he returned to Earth, everything was dead, and Thanos was gone. After endless years alone, Ghost Rider was found by Galactus, who agreed to make him his herald in exchange for being allowed to devour Earth. And so he became the Cosmic Ghost Rider and a herald of Galactus. So let's see if he is hopefully not a dud of Galactus like the other heralds. So let's go ahead and take a look at his mechanics, right? So basically, it's kind of the way you're going to play Ghost Rider, or Cosmic Ghost Rider, I should say, is it's going to be kind of like a choose your own adventure, because he gets all these different kind of judgments, which give him different buffs. So different actions trigger different buffs, and buffs cause judgments. Judgments are what Cosmic Ghost Rider is after, as they increase the duration of further buffs until he consumes his judgments and the loop starts over. Controlling the order Cosmic Ghost Rider's buffs are triggered is key to getting maximum value out of the high impact ones, and then combining them with the armor breaks to reach max potential. When battling against Cosmic Ghost Rider, your concern becomes preventing his buffs and therefore their associated judgments. So basically you're going to want to bring in a nullifier or a fate sealer or a staggerer when we fight him in the monthly event quest. So Fate Seal is a useful reset button on his building counter, and the unblockable buff on his special one needs to be respected if that judgment hasn't triggered yet. Once his signature ability unlocks, he becomes much more dangerous on defense, as allowing him to reach his fifth judgment will then trigger a much more dangerous damnation buff. So like the OG Ghost Rider, he's going to have 5 different judgments. So, and if you want, I can put the link into my Ghost Rider video where I go over his 5 judgments and basically the best way to play them. So let's go ahead and take a look at his base stats. So again, we're at another champ with about 10, 6, 40 PI. He's got okay health. He's a little squishy, right? But it seems like, and I mentioned this in the Red Goblin video, if you haven't watched that, go check it out. It seems like Kabam is really kind of stuck on this 10, 6, 40, 4 PI as of right now. The latest couple champs have been right around there. So he actually doesn't have too bad of base stats. Now, funny thing is about Cosmic Ghost Rider is he is actually going to be Cosmic and not Mystic. And I mean, it makes sense if you think about it, although I still think he should have been Mystic and not Cosmic. I get it. He's got the power Cosmic, and that's probably why Kabam made him Cosmic, but I feel like this could be a topic for another video. So I'm not going to dive too far into that, but he's got basic abilities. So he's immune to bleed and incinerate. Thank goodness. He's got fury and armor break. Now he does rely heavily on buffs. He has some very strong buffs, which can have quite a bit of control over triggering. So you can kind of choose how you want them to be triggered, and you can stack them up for some big combos and DPS spike moments. So that's always good. Again, he's bleed and incinerate immune, and he's got a controllable playstyle. So basically you've got a bit of control over when you're going to hit those 5 judgments. So that's kind of really neat. Now that we know a little bit about his strengths, let's talk about his weakness, because he's got quite a few, right? So again, if you're going to bring in to face him, which we should probably think about when we are going to face him in the monthly event quest, is bringing in someone who can stagger, nullify, or that sort of thing, his buffs, right? Because that's going to be the key thing. So having a Mystic for the monthly event quest is going to be key. I have a feeling Claire is going to play a big role in a lot of this, especially if if he is immune to bleed and incinerate. That's just going to make getting her clairvoyance charges a whole lot easier for some sweet, sweet damage. And then if you bring in someone who is armor break or debuff immune, that's not going to be good either for him. So, you know, Dragon Man and his armor break immune, well, technically he's armor shatter immune, but if you place an armor break debuff on him, you're going to begin to degen. So I feel like Dragon Man could be a pretty decent counter to Cosmic Ghost Rider. And then power control. So having some sort of power control, so, you know, the Vij, Warlock, you know, those are all solid options. Again, Claire, I really think Claire is going to have a lot to do with this new monthly event quest that we've got coming up on Wednesday, but only time will tell. So now that we went over his strengths and his weaknesses, let's take a look at his abilities. So I already mentioned about being bleed and poison immune, and then he's got the Cosmic Pennant Stare. So this is actually a little bit of a boost, much like how OG Ghost Rider is, right? When you're facing villain champs. So when fighting a hashtag villain at the start of the fight, gain 100% chance to place an indefinite armor break debuff on the opponent, which is always good since he does kind of, well, need that. All right, and then he's got the Cosmic Judgment, and I know this is a lot to read here, so I'm gonna go over it. So the Cosmic Judgment is a passive, right? And when he triggers an Armor Up, Fury, Precision, Cruelty, Power Gain, Unblockable, Vigilance, or Aptitude buff, he also has a 100% chance to gain a corresponding Judgment. So each Judgment can only be stacked a single time, but lasts indefinitely. And each Judgment increases the duration of any buff triggered by 20%. While you have 5 Judgments in place, this bonus is doubled. So in order to get the max out of it, you want to get the 5 Judgments. Now, upon gaining any 5 or more Judgments, there is a 100% chance to place a Power Lock debuff on the opponent for 4 seconds. So he's got some power control there. After this power lock ends or fails to apply, all Judgments on the opponent are converted to armor break debuffs, reducing their armor rating for an X amount for 10 seconds and removing an armor up buff. So basically it's going to consume one of his armor up buffs. If Cosmic Ghost Rider gains a Fate Seal debuff, he removes all of his Judgments and he cannot trigger new ones until it ends. So basically this is what it is. Triggering a buff triggers the corresponding Judgment. Only 1 Judgment per buff type. Judgments make your buffs last longer, and at 5 you're going to power lock your opponent, so that's where the power control comes from. Then they convert to all armor breaks and you start over. So this is basically, then you can kind of control what order you want to trigger your buffs in. So basically you could trigger, you know, an Aptitude before triggering a Fury, and then, you know, how do you want to get the max out of Cosmic Ghost Rider? So I feel like this will make more sense when I can actually get my hands on him and play him. So until that time, this is kind of what it looks like on paper, but it definitely seems interesting. He seems a little bit more complicated than potentially OG Ghost Rider, but again, only time will tell, and I can't wait to get my hands on him. And I feel like a 6-minute or less video is definitely needed for this guy, just based on how he reads on paper. So, okay, now that we went over that, let's take a look at what happens when he's attacked and when he attacks. So if he's attacked, if the Judgment of Armor is not active, he gets an armor up buff. So this is kind of important, right? Because you can trigger the buff and get the Judgment, but you have to wait until the Judgment clears to place it again. So basically you can't trigger this buff more than once in the 5 Judgment buff rotation. Okay. So then if you do it while charging a heavy attack, if the Judgment of Aptitude is not active, 100% chance to trigger an Aptitude buff, increasing the potency of any Armor Up, Fury, Cruelty, and Precision buffs triggered by 50% for 8 seconds. So this is another important one for Cosmic Ghost Rider. Do you trigger it right before the buff you want to boost, or do you try to save it for later in the rotation and try to boost multiple buffs with it? It's kind of one of those like double-edged swords with the Aptitude. I feel like with the Aptitude, you're going to want to trigger that one after you have a couple buffs active. Okay, now let's take a look at when you finish the combo with a medium attack. So if the Judgment of Vigilance is not active, 100% chance to trigger a Vigilance buff, preventing your attacks from missing for 10 seconds. So this is kind of a nice counter to like Guillotine 2099, Darkhawk, you know, the like, right? Or what's his face? Professor X. Or it's kind of an easy like throwaway Judgment. Then if you finish it with a light attack, If the judgment of power gain is not active, 100% chance to trigger the power gain buff, granting 75% of a bar of power over 1.25 seconds. So basically 1.25 seconds. Now, this one is important for Ghost Rider because it's a strong kind of like short power gain burst, right? And this is basically kind of critical, it seems, to Ghost Rider to be able to jump straight to a special attack that corresponds to the next buff judgment that he's looking for. So you're gonna want to kind of, it seems like, be really thoughtful in how you are planning out these judgments. Okay, so now let's take a look at the special attacks, right? If the judgment of cruelty is not active, 100% chance to trigger a cruelty buff, granting X critical damage rating for 15 seconds. And this is great for really nice damage output, especially once you have those armor breaks on, and you can combine it with the special 2 for precision. So let's talk about his special attacks, right? So we got special 1, Hellfire. So on activation, if the judgment of unblockable is not active, 100% chance to trigger an unblockable buff for 1 second. So, and then on hit, it's gonna deal a burst of incinerate damage and removes all perfect block chance, and reduces block efficiency by 50%. So this is kind of nice. And this one here is useful for like auto block champs, right? Darkhawk, Medusa, Mcoc, all of those guys, right? So this is kind of a nice little special here. Now let's take a look at the special 2, Power Cosmic. On activation, if the judgment of precision is not active, 100% chance to trigger a precision buff, increasing crit rating for 15 seconds. And then on hit, this is going to apply the armor break debuff on the opponent, reducing their armor rating for 15 seconds and removes an active armor up buff. So both the precision and the armor up breaks from this special can have a big impact on his damage. Like, this is where it is, because while the precision can be really strong, you can actually trigger precision with dexterity. So we got to kind of keep that in mind as we are playing Cosmic Ghost Rider. Okay, now let's take a look at his special 3, Cosmic Judgment. On activation, if the judgment of Fury is not active, 100% chance to trigger a Fury buff, granting an increase in attack for 15 seconds. So it's gonna be kind of, it is kind of a choose your own adventure type deal when you're talking about Cosmic Ghost Rider and his judgments and how you're activating them. Now let's talk about his signature ability, because I do feel like he needs to be awakened. So it's called Cosmic Vengeance, and Cosmic Ghost Rider's Vengeance is so great that even after they're removed, his judgments weaken the very fabric of his opponents. The power lock debuff triggered when reaching 5 judgments is upgraded to a damnation debuff, dealing X damage over X seconds. Opponents under damnation are also power locked, heal blocked, and fate sealed. So I definitely think that this guy is going to need to be awakened. Whether or not he needs to be at a high sig, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm kind of assuming that he probably will be. This is going to be really good because it gives him some, you know, much more utility in stopping, you know, heals, regens, that sort of thing, power gains. So I kind of feel like he's going to need the awakening and potentially a high sig as well. So let's talk about his synergy. So he's got Spirit of Vengeance with Ghost Rider, where he gains plus 50% duration if you have no judgments active on the opponent, and then Ghost Rider increases his Fury buff duration by 100%, which is good, but again, your Ghost Rider would need to be awakened. And then he's got one with the Heralds of Galactus with Silver Surfer, Terrax, and Airwalker. And so basically this just benefits him. So once per fight, dash back and hold block for 1.2 seconds, and the next judgment you attempt to trigger has minus 100% ability accuracy. So that's kind of really nice. Cosmic Justice on Wheels with Night Thrasher. Cosmic Ghost Rider increased armor break duration by 35%. That's nice. And Night Thrasher, the last hit of heavy attack, refreshes 1 active taunt debuff. That's okay. And then he's got Cosmic Bane of Evil with Man-Thing. So Cosmic Ghost Rider on heavy charge gain 100% chance to trigger an unstoppable buff lasting 0.5 seconds and going on cooldown for 10 seconds. That's not bad. That could be good for like can't stop, won't stop. And then Man-Thing gain 5 agitation whenever you nullify a buff. So that's actually really good for Man-Thing. I really like that. I think Man-Thing is kind of underrated, so I'm super pumped for that. And then Punishments of Infinite Variety with Punisher 2099, who we all know is getting tweaked. So Cosmic Ghost Rider, the first time your opponent reaches max power each fight, drain 5% of their power and trigger a power lock debuff lasting 2 seconds. That's nice. And then Punisher 2099, heavy attacks have 100% chance to grant a Fury buff, increasing attack rating by 25% for 20 seconds. So that's nice, especially if you're going to be using the stun, mainly for the stun off the heavy for Punisher 2099. So I actually really like that. So I don't know, Cosmic Ghost Rider seems interesting. He seems like he's kind of got a lot going on. Only time will tell actually how well he is going to be. He seems kind of complicated to play, but it's also kind of like a choose your own adventure. But anyways, guys, that's all that I got. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Cosmic Ghost Rider? Do you think it's like a novel trying to figure out his abilities? How do you think he is going to be to play? Or do you think he's just going to be another Dud of Galactus? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you guys liked what you saw and you want to see more, please remember to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and hit me up in the Discord chat. Thanks, guys. Bye.